Hello and welcome to this week's beginner's guide video on orbital relays. We will start off this video by talking about all the mechanics and features unlocked by the technologies. We have one tier of technology over here and another over here. Each one has three icons which we're going to walk through very soon. But before we do that, I just want to let you know what else we'll be covering in this video. After we talk about the technologies, we're going to be comparing the orbital relay exploitation to the exploitations that were in the game beforehand, the landmarks which you can find out at land and at sea, and the exploitations which you develop on land and at sea. We're going to do that to help new players know when they should be considering which exploitations to develop where. Okay, now we're ready to break down the icons under each of the levels of orbital relay technology. The first icon is basically telling you that you have orbital relays available to you. If you sign certain diplomacy agreements, the open relay agreement, you can maneuver quickly between your space and your ally space. If you haven't been following any of the devs, basically this works like a teleporter. The teleporters have locked down positions which it will take you to and from, like so, but you get to keep your movement point when you do that. If you use a orbital relay, it depletes all of your movement point. I could take these guys, send them through this orbital relay to here, but it's going to use all their movement points. It says that they're going to have a little bit left over, but once they get there, they'll be depleted like this. So yeah, they got no movement point at the end of it, and there is still more to it. I know you may be thinking, we're ready to move on, right? The main selling point is maneuvering across the map, but there's definitely more to it than that. The second line of where it says level 1, it tells you get a couple jobs, but the second line I think is massive. Adding a little bit of more income to each of your exploitation types means that if you've got fully developed cities with exploitations other than the orbital relay, to say you've got like 3 of them. I got a good example here, 1, 2, and 3. Then you can plump down an orbital relay to really boost how much you get from each thing. If we click in here, we see we're making a lot of food, and a good chunk of it is coming from our orbital logistics upgrades. The base level I think is giving us 10 for each one. It says orbital relay exploitation level 1. That's where this comes into play right here. We do have the second level, or rather we do have this upgrade giving us a plus 15 for the 2 different ones here. We have a food exploitation here and food exploitation here. So the base 10 over here where it says orbital relay exploitation, that's 10 from above, 10 from below, and then the orbital relay base level 1 where it says plus 30, that's 15 from above, 15 from below. That's a lot of food. I know we're getting a lot of food from other places, but it's not nothing. You know, compared to Elysium Parks, it's pretty much equivalent, but I think that's still better than a food exploitation all by itself. Basically try and combine these in your economic powerhouses, and you'll probably see that you get some nice benefits. One interesting thing I did notice is that plus 10 does not apply to all the resources that you get on water. So orbital relays actually work a little bit better with land exploitations than they do with water ones, but that doesn't mean it's not worth having water exploitations. We'll get more into that later when we compare those in more detail at the end of the video. Now let's talk a little bit more about the other icons that we have here. I guess we've talked quite a bit about this plus 15. We don't really need to go over that again. It basically takes your plus 10 for each of your exploitation types that you get and adds a plus 15 on top of it, so you get plus 25. At first, when I read it, I thought I was going to take my 10 and make it plus 15. That's not that good, but plus 25, that's worth investing in. It only takes a little bit of production to get yourself to this point. 250 after you got your thing built, 150 to build it. I think it's worth it. And let's see, the last one is a military assembly base. You can't build both of these in a location. You can either go economy focus or military focus, and you have the same option over here. So I'd recommend combining your economy benefits and your military benefits, but you don't have to do that. You can actually play around with it and make it your own. In the middle here I have the economy one. Over here on my border I have the military one because, well, I'm probably going to see some combat, so I might as well upgrade it to give me the healing and resupplied effect, as well as getting an orbital garrison in here. Both of those things are quite nice. I think we need to talk a little bit about resupplied. We haven't talked about that yet, so let's try and find resupplied up here. I know I have seen it, and yeah, I think when I looked for it I couldn't find it, so when they come through here, there we go, I found it. The resupplied thing says you get plus 200 morale and plus 10% bonus damage, so if you get that you can increase your fighting capabilities a bit. That's pretty insignificant. I would say it's not worth going for this if unless you're under a lot of pressure from your enemy commanders. This option I think is almost always the better option. You should be getting as many orbital logistics bases as humanly possible. And yeah, that's everything for this level of tech. When you use this upgrade on your forward relay bases, you can get some more defenses on your forward bases, and it will allow you to teleport around. So let's create a forward base somewhere around here. You got enough movement to make it up here? This is our forward base. So yeah, if you're willing to just wait around, we'll let the AI do its thing. Basically, it's going to show that it's not able to become a forward relay immediately. We're going to have to upgrade it, which takes 3 turns after this, and it takes its military power up from, I think it's 500. Yeah, it's from 500 to 740. That's what I have in my notes, and it costs a lot to do that. I don't think it's really worth the upkeep of Cosmite. There's an upkeep of 20 energy and 3 Cosmite for each of these that you end up building. I just can't see that being worth it unless you are trying to set it up right next to an enemy capital, and that way you can teleport in a bunch of armies right next to the enemy. But yeah, even then it's going to take a long time for you to actually build this thing up. It takes 200 energy and 30 Cosmite to just get started, so I don't know. Probably not worth investing in. But yeah, if you can like build a forward base here or here and then teleport all your dudes in, that could be really, really useful. I prefer placing these things in my colonies, these orbital relay exploits in my colonies near the enemy, so that I can get to them easily. So yeah, I think that's everything I wanted to say on the forward relays themselves. After that, we can talk about this, which I think I understand most of it. I tried to look up rapid redeployment here, or what is it called? Rapid reinforcement, and it doesn't come up. When I went into combat after installing this, I couldn't get the modifier to appear anywhere. The orbital garrison does work. That thing's really, really nice. It drops in a unit on an enemy unit, displacing them and spawning in a friendly tier 1 or tier 2 ground unit, excluding scouts. So probably something pretty useful in combat. Some of the scouts are less useful, and I think that they designed it so that you're more likely to get something that's going to have value in the fight. And yeah, I just like getting more bodies on the in the battlefield. So I strongly recommend you go for this. Maybe with rapid reinforcement, this will get even better. Maybe rapid reinforcement was just a different term they were using for orbital garrison at one point, and they didn't trade out the text. So this is nice for people who are investing in tactical operations. If you want to be able to spend a lot of energy on tactical operations, you're going to need tactical operations points. Just throwing down a couple of these everywhere in your safe space sounds smart. Once again, you can't do this and this, so you have to make a decision. I was going to build one in here because it's relatively safe. It's pretty far away from the front line. It's kind of near the front line. We can send people in through here, which is fine. We don't really need to defend it hardcore, so we'll just be able to send some people over when we need them by using this operation and get the most out of the sector as we can by increasing our well, I guess not just this, but our what's it called, operational defense. If we put that building there, it's going to increase our defenses around here, which I think is good for certain strategic operations. If somebody wants to like take the city, it's going to be harder for them to implement what they want. And yeah, that's everything for the technologies. So I think we're ready to start talking about the exploitation options that you have in front of you and when you should be building each of them. It's very important to remember that the most important factor to consider is how easy a territory is to defend and maneuver around. If there's a lot of rivers or mountains or maybe just a lake or something like that blocking your units from maneuvering around to a site you really want, maybe it's worth waiting, because if an AI can just easily take it off of you, that's a waste of time and resources. If you want to use forward bases to build roads to make it easier to just simply maneuver about your space, it can be worth doing that to get the roads, although I generally don't think that's worth the influence. But if, say, you know this is a location that you want to turn into a city, it can serve two purposes or have two benefits. It can allow you to have roads to maneuver your people around, and also it can allow you to get the basic level of military infrastructure when you settle it with a colony or a colonizer. If you send a colonizer here, you can save yourself a little bit of time building the defenses at the cost of influence, which I think becomes a lot more viable in the late game when you have more influence sitting around and you don't have little locations that you want to buy armies off of. Let's see if I have an army over here to just kind of demonstrate that. I'm sure if you're watching this, you're familiar with buying armies off of locations. We got a guy over here that we can bribe like this. That's expensive and a pretty decent use of influence. So yeah, keep that in mind when you're expanding. The first sectors that you grab are almost always going to be land sectors. While it is hypothetically possible that you may have a water sector spawn in right next to your capital, and you may get the technology to get that first, I don't think that's really a viable strategy. You're going to want to try and get these landmarks in your space. There's always one that starts next to you. You're going to want to get that as soon as possible, whether that's by attacking the NPC faction or by allying with them and buying the location. You're going to want that, as well as some other locations that synergize with it. Since this one specialized in energy, I decided that this place right here should be mostly energy. I saw another energy location down here, so I decided that I would use the exploitations here. You can only have 2 of every type, so I decided to go and focus this location on energy as much as possible. So this orbital relay now boosts their production, and this location in here, if we look at our energy production, it's pretty ridiculous. That's a lot. I think you can get this up to like 500 with the right combination of landmarks and maybe water upgrades. Yeah, you can upgrade your energy production like this. We don't have the tech here, but yeah, there's a thing that increases your energy production, like this increases food production, which can be worth combining with your land sectors if you have that, if there is a little bit of water close to your cities. But you know, you can't always rely on that. I would always save a location for an orbital relay. You don't necessarily need to not grab it. This sector I think I grabbed because it had a river thing. Farce and it was Arcadian, which is very, very nice for Amazon, but I didn't develop it into an exploitation because I knew at one point I was going to need that. This one would have been a decent research place, and maybe I could have turned this into my my orbital relay. It could have been swapped at any point, but I think I decided this would be easier to defend, so I put it there and developed that there, and I developed this later. Yeah, honestly could have gone either way, but it wouldn't have made sense to make this 2 research exploitations and this 2 energy exploitations, because then you're not using things like the orbital relay or the water relay to benefit the one specialization that you are focusing on. You should really specialize on one thing if you can afford to. Maybe you have to buy defenses, and in the early game that's generally what I would recommend. Let's see if there's anything else for the land stuff that I wanted to say before we move on to building in water, which we've already covered a bit. Yeah, I like developing my sectors to level 2. I think this guy is only on, oh, he's actually up to level 4. I like taking them to level 2 and then forgetting about them, because that plus 15 income that I'm getting from here doesn't go up once you get to level 3, 4, or 5. You just get a little bit tiny more production for each job you have assigned a person to. And honestly, I'd much rather spend time developing an orbital relay than upgrading one of these exploitations. It looks like by chance I was just upgrading this, or because I went for an energy focus, I was like, yeah, I might as well upgrade this and this at the same time, because they're both going to get a pretty big benefit out of it. But yeah, if you looked at all my other my colonies, you'd see a lot of level 2s. This is level 2, this is level 2. This is a landmark, so yeah, it's already upgraded. This is level 2, level 3, so slightly better, but you get the idea. Generally, you don't need to take it above the 2nd level of exploitation. I mean, people can take exploitations and raise them, which I think is a pretty valid strategy with certain orbital relays that could really cut off somebody's strategy, and I like that. I like that the game is changing, the meta is changing, and you're gonna have to take that into consideration when you're actually placing your relays. You don't want to be too close to your border, because then people can take it off of you and burn it down. But you do want it to be close enough that you can reinforce your allies. So yes, this map here does not have a lot of water on it, but I did decide to grab the water development tech to try and help out this city. I think this city was either my 2nd or 3rd city. I may have grabbed these ones first, actually. Let's see, how big is it? 18. This one's 14, so I think I made this one before I made this one, and I grabbed this one pretty early on. I think this was like a settlement that I bought, and then this was like my colonizer, perhaps? It seems pretty far to send your colonizer. That may have been another settlement, which I just happened to buy pretty early on. But yeah, it was close enough to water that I was like, I'm going to take advantage of that. I didn't get as much out of it as possible. I didn't focus on energy, or rather I didn't focus on food or research here. We have a research exploitation here, and if I made this a research exploitation, it would have made a lot of sense to make this into the water exploitation, which gives you a lot of research. But I didn't need it. I was getting a lot of research off of my archaeology sites and all of the little things that I conquered, so I never got around to it. It was worth more to invest in energy production, or what else does this place have? Not a whole lot. I think I just was using it to support my economy, setting it to energy production as much as possible, or research production every once in a while, because that would help me boost my the rate in which I could pump out technologies. You never want more than 2 water sectors in a city. If I was like on a corner and I was surrounded by 4 water sectors, I could grab all 4 of them with one city, but I could only exploit 2 of them. So keep that in mind. It's worth grabbing a couple. I'd say 1 per colony is pretty ideal, but not necessary. I personally love it when the AI attacks my naval bases. If you've got a lot of them at sea, the AI is going to be more likely to attack one of them, and they tend to not take the technology that makes it so that their units operate better at sea. I forget where it is. I think it's just like water, aqua development, or the other one that comes in later, this one. And their units, they take a lot more damage for just being disembarked, making it a lot easier to just pick off a couple units here and there, and sometimes just like take it and then leave it. They won't raise it or anything, they'll just take it and then move on. So it's, I think, like one of those strategies that can really help you take out the AI. Of course, not a valid strategy against a human opponent, but it is kind of nice baiting those attacks out at sea. Yeah, if you use your tactical operations, you can actually take fights that you're supposed to lose, things that are like have double the army strength attacking you, and win those fights. I like summoning in like the sentinel, just to like draw some fire, and then using my really strong naval units to pick off people from afar. Works pretty well with, I think, Kirko and other people who have long-ranged attacks, like the Syndicate. And I'm pretty sure we're ready to move on to orbital relays. Yeah, so I think I said earlier you should have at least 1 in every colony. You are going to want ones in your economic powerhouses, like this one and this one and this one, that are very easy to defend. You don't want to put your economic orbital relays out on the edge of your space near the enemy. You want to put your military ones out here, and if you have one of those, it actually provides the exploit bonus income to all the other exploitations. So you don't need to go too crazy and set up like 2 orbital relays. I think you can actually build 2, but I'm not terribly certain. It may be that you can only have 1 in a colony, but regardless, you only really need 1. It's mostly for teleporting around and supporting other exploitations. If you've got 3 exploitations of another type, you're going to get the most out of this one. But if you've got 2, then it's got redundancy. It's not going to add +10 onto something that doesn't make anything. So yeah, make 1 of these, leave 1 of these, leave spaces that like don't have a lot of opportunities for development to take that. For example, this doesn't have any nice locations, which make it so it would be a better exploitation. It's a great place to place this economic orbital thingy. This one doesn't have anything special in it. It's got a river, that's kind of nice, but apart from that, it's pretty much worth ignoring. This place could be okay, actually, as an exploitation. But because it's mountains and fungal, I ignored it. It doesn't have a lot of directions it can go in. I could have just as easily set this up here, but there's no river, so I think this is the better option. I mean, the river just gives you +10 food, no development necessary. This gives you +5 energy. I got plenty of energy coming in from elsewhere. So yeah, let's see. I think I covered pretty much everything here. You want to place your military orbital relays close to where you're having fights. This place was under a lot of pressure once I initially set it up, so I was like, alright, first things first, I'm going to set up a military orbital relay that I can send my forces from. If I'm over here clearing out things, I can quickly grab them and bring them back over here to defend. So you want to be on your borders, on your frontiers. I'd say this is frontier space, so I can grab things and bring them in case the AI does something like this and is sneaking an army through the empty space in between us. And then the last thing I would do, the last place I'd place these orbital relays, if you're trying to do something militarily, is sneak it as close to the enemy capital as possible. I was able to scout this out very early. I encountered them, or the scouting, like right around here, in the first like 10 turns, I think, and then I just flew it up around and saw that was their capital. So I was like, cool. I don't want to build it like directly at them, but I want to be aware that they're over here and put things like defenses in their general direction. And yeah, I think the fact that this is here means that I can grab people from all the way down here, grab them, take them to a relay. I guess if this was a relay, that'd be kind of nice because there's none that are really that close. We could go through this orbital relay and then try to get to here, which is, it says 9 turns, but it would have been more if we didn't have that relay. So yeah, keep that in mind when you're placing down your military orbital relays. Is there anything else I wanted to say here? I think that's everything I wanted to say about the relays. But I did want to mention one last thing I noticed at the end when I was taking my notes here. Because of the way arcologies work now, you can actually get 4 landmarks in a city. This landmark, this landmark, this landmark, and this landmark are all within 2 tiles a Saston. So if I had, let's just go in here, take 10 free bombs. I did that wrong, didn't I? Then I could like conquer this and connect it. I could take this and annex it there and get a very, very, very productive city, as well as something that can get a lot of nice little bonuses. Each of these landmarks have a building associated with it. This one right here increases your accuracy, very, very nice. You combine that with this one here, which increases your resistance and your crit chance, as well as Heriter units damage. I'm playing Heriter, so that's amazing. We want that. And this one increases your ranks by 2. I actually haven't tested if I combine this with this, if I can take my guys up to elite rank immediately, but I think it might be possible. And I'm pretty sure they wouldn't have spawned in 2 governors' palaces right next to each other in previous versions of the game. This is just after the Stegosaurus update. The arcologies unlocked these 2 right here. These 2, they didn't spawn in too close to each other. They're pretty close, but just out of luck we got this, which basically means the most efficient cities you can have are cities that have 4 landmarks, or 3 landmarks and an orbital relay. If I put like an orbital relay in here and combined these 3 in here, that'd be a very, very efficient city. I'm pretty sure ultimately it wouldn't be quite as efficient as having this plus 40 production and plus 20 energy on top of the regular exploitation, because this can still go up to a level 5 exploitation. It just gets a little bit of extra stuff on top of that. Before moving on, I did want to just show off that if you combine all 4 of the landmarks to this city Saston and build a unit, that he comes out at prime rank. Amazing. That's so good. He's got crystalline enhancement and what's it called? Weapon linking, Paragon training facility? What? That must have come from elsewhere. I don't know where that came from, but he's got even more nice stuff. But yeah, this city right here, let's take a second to look at what it's making. Not too much, except for research. Look at that research, it's insane. We did have to add some pops to fill in all the slots, but look at that, that's amazing. That's pretty good. What's the Paragon thing? I'm still trying to figure that out. See here? Ah, Paragon Training District. This is an amazing city. It's just got everything. Now that we're done talking about orbital relays and sector exploitations, I just wanted to let you know that I am going to be doing more beginner's guides over the next few weeks until I think the Federation's DLC comes out for Stellaris. I want to really cover the different aspects of Planetfall as much as possible. I think that would be a fun way for me to spend the month of December. And yeah, if there's anything that you want me to focus on, let me know in the comments below. If there's anything that I missed in Orbital Relays or any other tips that you have for new players, please feel free to let me know in the comments or on my posts on Reddit, on the Planetfall forums. I'll be keeping an eye on those as much as humanly possible. I think it's a really fun way to get ideas for new videos. I think one of my comments recently was asking me to go into terraforming and how I should go about that as either the Amazon or the Devar. And I really like that idea because I hadn't really played the Amazon before that, and I hadn't played the Devar. I hadn't played around with terraforming, and I'm sure that's something a lot of other new players haven't gone around to yet. So yeah, I'll see you around for that. Have a good one.